heard
It's the only one
it.
way
Everybody
it goes
heard
back.
me.
You press bolts and stuff like that. That's, that's all, those are optional.
I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order and ask everybody to please silence your phones. And I'm going to ask Doug Page if he will bless our services tonight.
Heavenly Father God, we come to you tonight, Lord, you ask that you lead this council, God, that you guide their decisions, be an honor to you, and in accordance with what needs to be done in your will. God, we pray for our city, continue with our recovery. God, we just ask that you continue to be our God and keep us in your favor. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is that mine? Sorry. Okay, let's open up the meeting, and our next item on the agenda is a public hearing, which we will open the public hearing at 6:01. And it will be on the 2019 Annual Drinking Water Quality Consumer Confidence Report. Everybody should have got one in the mail if you're on the water system. So the public hearing allows you to ask questions or make statements at this point. If none, then I'm going to close the hearing at 6:02. Next item, items of community interest. I would like to remind everybody that this weekend is the second annual Red, Whites, and Brews and Food Trucks 2 at the Second Monday grounds. Food trucks, I think they're up to 10 or 12 so far. Also that same night, the rodeo. Diana, can you help me? It's a 4D barrel racing?
Exhibitions start at 5:30 for a 4D barrel race. The actual barrel race starts between 7 and 7:30. Lots of exciting horse flesh out there to take a look and see. Really a fun event.
And then 8 o'clock, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Bluegrass Band does a tribute to the Beatles. Will start, take stage. So everybody be there, have fun. The next item on the agenda is public comments. And does anybody in our audience have any public comments? None, then we're going to move on. Next item, city manager report. Mr. City Manager, please take this over.
I have several items here that we need to talk about. The first is pointing out the Charter Commission meetings. Those are ongoing. I think they've mostly finished with section 1 through 6 of the charter with a few changes. The next meeting will be on July the 16th and on July the 30th after that. So have any inclination to come to a meeting that most people would consider quite boring, but it's somewhat entertaining too. Wouldn't you think so? Yeah. There has been some disagreement, but it's been civil, so that's a good thing. Tonight we're going to be refunding some bonds for the community center. Kevin Lerner is here with the government capital, and he'll touch on that in a little while and talk about how much we're saving, and that turned into a really good deal. Item 3 on your agenda is selling a tract of land, which is 4/10 of an acre, or not even 4/10, 4/100 of an acre. Please consider a zero amount on that. When we started this process, I told the landowners out there that if they would pay for everything, the surveying and all that, that we could probably come up with a deal where if it didn't cost the city anything, we could just transfer the land to them. And that's not just them, but any property on out there, because this road has been abandoned by the county, and so it makes it so there's a little bit of property there. I would recommend giving the property to the owner of this land. You have a budget in your hand. It's not complete in that we will not have an actual tax values until July the 20th. Of course, you're welcome to study this budget. It's going to be pretty accurate, I think, because we've got preliminary values, but we don't have the final values, and so I can't say rock solid that this is exactly what it's going to be, but notice that it's going to be a bare bones budget, and we'll talk about that more in a little while. I sat through 5.5 hours of a Zoom meeting with the Texas Department of Agriculture about the Community Development Block Grant. If you ever have sat through a 5.5 hour Zoom meeting with one 5-minute break and one 20-minute break, it was horrible. And I made the mistake, I stuck my foot in my mouth. I forgot to mute my microphone during one of our breaks, and I said something derogatory about how long the meeting was, and everybody heard me. In fact, I had one guy call me and say, "Bert, your microphone's live. Watch it." Anyway, we got a lot done and got a lot settled, and that I think that'll help. I don't like that the state's doing the scoring on the community development block grants, but at least there's going to be money available for us to continue to apply for in the years to come. I'm in contact with a grant writing company called Traylor and Associates about a couple of grants. They've been helping me a little bit. We're going to go after a couple of grants, and Traylor is not the only grant writing company. There's probably a list of eight different grant writers that we'll send a request for proposal to. But one of the grants is what they call a state urgent need fund, or a SUN grant, and that is a grant that's about $350,000 in amount. It's a 100% grant. The urgent need fund comes from the fact that we've had the tornado, and it's one place that we can get some funding to take care of some of the tornado damage. It's not necessarily paying for what got torn up in the tornado or any of our expenses, but we can get a grant to mitigate some of the problems that we've had with the tornado. We're also looking at another grant through the Texas General Land Office. It's a mitigation grant, and it's a lot more substantial, and I'm doing a request for a proposal for these grant writing companies and have sent those out. In fact, I got 2 proposals today. Those people are out there and they're really wanting to work, so that's a good deal. It's a no-cost solution for us because all of their fees will come through the grant process. The TxDOT grant for the airport has changed substantially since the advent of the coronavirus. Stoney has been staying on top of that, and because of the grants for the virus, our share of the grant funding will probably be zero. Originally, our share of the funding was going to be in the vicinity of $225,000, but we're almost positive. You notice that, almost positive, right? Because you never can take anything to the bank. But I'm pretty sure that the grant, our share of the grant will be zero, and we won't have to come up with that $225,000 that we had budgeted. I think Stoney has done a good job of staying on top of it and making sure that we're getting the correct information, and so that's $225,000 in the good that we'll be, so that's excellent. We received funds today from the Texas Department of Emergency Management Coronavirus Relief Fund in the amount of $56,507. We're to receive funding in the amount of $55 per capita. This is the initial installment of the total amount available to us of $282,535. We can collect the difference by sending in paid invoices of what we have bought for hand sanitizer, any expenses that we've had related to coronavirus, and so we'll be applying for those funds in the near future. Which means there's still $226,000 and change on the table, so we'll be going after that as much as we can. And I need to communicate to some people, because it may be that we can go out and buy something to help with coronavirus relief that we might need for other things and then get paid 100% back for it. But I've got to check into that. I'm still communicating with the Nature Conservancy about buying water from Haven Carter Lake. There's some difference of opinion about the lake level at which they can no longer take water from the lake. I proposed a higher level, and they're now preparing a contract for our review with this new level. They were wanting 909, which I thought was a little low, and I countered at 912, which is still 8 foot down, but the way it's been raining, you never know, and it's a 5-year contract, and we could dry up. But at any rate, that will be a decision for y'all to make, but we're just negotiating right now. We got new fuel tanks delivered today at the airport. This was a budgeted item. Before long, we should be selling more fuel because of the ease of use, because of the credit card machines and all of the new fancy equipment that Stoney is putting in out there. It really looks great. Did a good job of placing that. The company will be here a couple of more days getting all the plumbing done, and we'll have those new tanks. And we're going to really and truly, when you think about it, because of the insurance that we have to buy for underground tanks, we don't have to do the cathodic testing anymore, and there's other tests for leakage and stuff that we're not encumbered with, so it'll save us some money in that vein. We have hired a company to come to the business park and stack the timber and brush to get it ready to burn. They moved in today, and they've already gotten a lot done by noon. It was really interesting to drive out there and look at it, because when I got there, the guy was on top of the pile of timber and brush and stuff, and I thought, how'd he get up there? But he's got more guts than I do. And I went back out at noon, and he had moved a lot of stuff, so that's going to be substantial. I'd encourage everybody on the council and the public to go out to the airport and look at the new fuel tank and to the business park and see the improvements out there. So that is all.
Any questions for Bert?
We still gonna burn the brush at some point? Or
Yes, sir.
Just make sure the wind's not coming from the south, please. I like breathing.
Chuck?
Live
It
right
won't,
there, Bert, don't.
hey, it won't smoke at all, Chuck.
That's what this guy does, right? Smoke was burning.
If we could get a north wind in the middle of the summertime, it'll be a miracle. So if there is, I'll go out there.
Fall is coming.
Okay, let's move on to the next next item is consent agenda items. You have the minutes from the last meeting.
I make the motion to accept the minutes as written.
Mr. Malone, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Bell? Ms. Higgins?
Aye.
Heffley?
Aye.
Love?
Aye.
Malone?
Aye.
And Bell?
Aye.
All right, so let's move on to new business, discussion and action. Ordinance 2007, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the City of Bowie, Texas General Obligation Refunding Bonds, Series 2020, and other matters related thereto. I think this is where we get to hear from Kevin.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Hope everybody's doing well. I guess the short story is, we're refunding bonds that have 10 years remaining that are currently at about a 4 to 4.25% interest rate. We're refunding them at a 1.9%. That's generating roughly $136,000 worth of savings over the next 10 years due to the lower interest rate. A little bit of the history behind it. These were bonds that were issued in 2010 for your community center. They were done on a 20-year term, and they were call restricted for the first 10 years. So from 2010 till August 15th of 2020, which is when your next payment is due, that's the budgeted payment. But as soon as you make that payment on August the 15th, we'll be able to refinance these bonds at a much lower interest rate, much more current rate than the 4 to 4.25% that they're at right now. So you've got roughly, it started out 2.1 million is what was financed back in 2010. There's a balance of 1.3 million outstanding that we're gonna maintain the 10 years term. We're not extending the term at all. We're gonna pay these bonds off with money borrowed at 1.9%. So there is a cost, and all these costs are wrapped up into the financing, so there's no out-of-pocket cost to the city. But there's roughly, I think you should have something in front of you that details these costs. Got, the Attorney General's office has to get a filing, there's bond counsel, there's what we call MCTAD, municipal area council government. It should be something that looks like this, I'm sorry. Don't they get one of these?
They've seen one that last week or our last meeting.
I apologize, I wish you had one right in front of you because it's a great story to tell. Again, we're refinancing existing bonds, 1.3 million over the next 10 years, significantly reduced rate. 1.9% is pretty cheap money for the next 10 years. Additionally, instead of the public sale methodology, which is how a lot of bonds are taken to the market and how these were originally taken to the market, where they certificate them up and break them, into $100,000 denominations and sell them to bondholders all over the country, we're able to put together a refunding that's what's called a private placement. In other words, we're selling the new transaction to one single investor. So that way, we don't have to pay for a rating. We don't have to pay for insurance. There's a tremendous amount of economies of scale when you get one investor instead of a whole slew of bondholders. We can negotiate friendly call restrictions, in which in this particular case, we have none. So if next year interest rates are lower or it makes sense, you can pay these off with another refunding. So there's no lockout to where you can't refinance these. If Mr. Cunningham hits the oil well and the city wants to pay it off early next year, there's no problem with that. So you can either refinance it or pay it off early on any payment date for the next 10 years. So in other words, it's basically a way, annually, the savings run from about $10,000 to $16,000 per year, simply due to the lower interest rate for the city. So it's a pretty good deal, best I can tell you. Now, the firm, and I mentioned that they're roughly 29, just shy of $30,000 worth of costs that are rolled in and capitalized into the financing to do this. Pays for us, pays for bond counsel, pays for the Attorney General, IRS filings, things of that nature. Just kind of a point of reference, the firm that originally put these bonds together was a firm called Specialized 10 years ago. This transaction was on their radar. They had submitted either to Bert or to Kerry an unsolicited, here's an estimate, we'd love to refund these bonds. And they had provided an estimated cost of issuance of $75,000, getting it done for under 30, and an estimated savings of roughly $65,000. We're saving 130. Likewise, the previous administration under Ricky Kyle, he had used a firm called Samco. Well, this transaction was on their radar as well, so they had submitted an unsolicited proposal to refinance the bonds, and they had a cost of issuance of $70,000 and an estimated savings of roughly $65,000. So I'm just trying to put that in perspective. This is costing less than 30 and saving 136,000 and some change. So a win-win is what I'm trying to say. We're here to seek council's blessing. Take action to move forward with this funding. We've got everything, the rate is locked, we've got everything keyed up for an August the 17th funding. So you'll make your normally scheduled payment due on August the 15th. 2 days later, we'll pay off the balance with the new lower interest rate borrowings.
So I want a motion, but I'll ask for one. Do I have a motion? to accept this?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Higgins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who?
Mr. Love.
Mr. Love.
We always do that, Chuck.
Heffley?
He's probably gonna get mad if she's ready.
Love?
Yeah, aye.
Malone?
Aye.
Bell? And Higgins. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, our next item on the agenda, new business, discussion and action ordinance 2020-08, an ordinance providing for a general election in the City of Bowie, authorizing the Montague County Elections Administrator to officially conduct the November 3rd, 2020 general election, setting forth council positions and terms, establishing regular and early voting places, and establishing an effective date. We do this every year.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Do I have a second?
I'll second Mr. Love's motion.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Higgins?
Aye.
Bell? Heffley? Love?
Aye.
And Malone?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is to consider selling the Tract 1 that Bert referenced in his city manager's report, being a part of Tract B, Section 2, Lake Bowie Subdivision on your agenda. It was put in here for us to sell, and I asked Sandy to change it from give to sell just to cover us, in case there were any issues with a council member not wanting to give it away. It's a very, very small tract of land. He told you that it's because of the county abandoned the road. So if you have any questions for Burke, he can probably answer them.
This is probably where that oil well is that Kevin mentioned that we need.
Well, it's real close to the existing pump jack out there. How far is it, Dee Dee? Yeah. You don't get the oil well, Dee Dee.
Surface only. And if $10 makes us legal, Che, maybe that's what we do?
Yeah, Mayor, it does. I mean, in a situation like this under the code, as long as the land is next up to the person who's going to receive it, as long as it's adjoining to it and they own that and be simple, then the council can determine whatever the price of that land may be in regards to conveying that land. So,
It's such a small piece of land, in my opinion, that our closing cost, if we tried to sell it to them, would be more than, or as much as what we got, so. And there are, how many other landowners between you and the spillway?
Probably 4 to 5.
Okay, so, you know, and this road covers at least 3 or 4 of those, the abandonment of that, so we may be doing this again, but it's straightening things out there, and I just think it'd be a good deal to just go ahead and transfer it myself, so.
We don't have to maintenance it?
Do what?
Said that we don't have to pay for maintenance when it gets
We don't have to
overgrown
do
and those
anything.
things?
So if we transfer, no closing cost. If we do a sum of $10, then we're gonna have to close at the title company, right?
Yeah, no, it won't cost us anything.
Okay.
Dee Dee has agreed to
Okay.
pay all those costs and
Okay.
stuff, so.
But it's adjoining, so we don't have to, my understanding, we don't have to charge her because it's adjoining.
it's up to as far as the price, it's up to the council to make a determination of what it could be. So, it'd be 0 or it'd be.
I make a motion that we transfer this land for the cost of $1.
Mr. Malone has a motion on the floor for the cost of $1. Do I have a
Chuck, I will
second?
second that, sir.
Mr. Love seconds the cost of $1.
Awful normal.
Heffley? Love?
Aye.
Malone?
Aye.
Bell? And Higgins.
Aye.
Thank you. $1, it will cost you $1.
No checks, we don't take checks.
Took a long time to get that done, didn't it, Dee Dee?
It's been about 5 years.
Has it been? No, I hadn't been here 5 years, so,
Started before you.
okay.
Okay, so let's go on to the next item, number 4, Resolution 2021-A, 2020-21-A, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bowie, Texas, designating Kim Haralson, MCTAD Chief Appraiser, to calculate the new no revenue tax rate and the voter approval tax rate in accordance with the Texas Tax Code. Anybody got questions on that one? We do this every year too. I said we do this every year too, don't we?
All,
No, we
all
don't.
this
She
is,
does.
is
does them,
She
but
does
this is just
them.
a new resolution.
New
because of,
resolution.
Senate
She
Bill
does it
2.
every year.
Yes.
Yes.
This first year we had to do a resolution because of that Senate Bill too.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So, do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. Ms. Higgins, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bell? Malone?
Aye.
Love?
Aye.
Heffley?
Aye.
Bell?
Aye.
And Higgins?
Aye.
Thank you. So what, that means we'll have to do this again next year. Yep. Number 5, Montague County Tax Appraisal District approved the proposed 2021 budget. Which I don't understand why we do. Yeah.
well, it's really not, but, the appraisal district is probably one of the best-run, government entities in this part of the world. I was on the board for several years, and they do a good job, and they do it economically, and it has grown to be a formality because they do such a good job, and there's no big expensive things you typically in the budget unless they have to buy a new set of software or something like that. So, yeah, you're right, Chuck, it is almost a formality.
Well, then I'll make a motion that we accept.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Heffley. Higgins?
Right.
Bell?
Aye.
Love?
Aye.
Malone?
Aye.
And Heffley.
Aye.
Thank you. Presentation of the draft 2021 City of Bowie municipal budget. Probably after you guys get a chance to look at this more than just the weekend, you'll have some more questions.
As I said earlier, this is, pretty close. This is bare bones budget. I don't like bare bones budgets, but I'm afraid, that in this day and time, the way things are right now, not knowing which way the economy's going or anything like that, I would hate to stick our necks out and borrow any more money than we've already borrowed or do anything new. You know, 6 months from now, 8 months from now, when things kind of calm down, we might approach the council about doing some things. But right now, I think a bare bones budget is the way to go. If we need to change some things halfway through the year, we can do that. You know, anything that we do, we, you know, just amend the budget and bring it to the council and get y'all's approval on it. This is not final by any stretch, but because we won't have the exact taxable values until July the 20th, so, you know, we're a little bit early, but there's not anything in this budget other than making note payments and doing our normal operations. There's no special purchase or anything like that. Kerry did a fantastic job of putting it together and taking care of things with it. So, Kerry, you got any comments?
So on the next meeting, which is the 27th, you'll have the tax revenue numbers.
And there's also got to be a public hearing on the proposed budget you've got it on the agenda
August
for
the
the
10th.
10th, so.
But I need a vote to present that budget on August the 10th, so I'll need a motion to approve the date. Anyway,
So moved.
thank you. Second,
I'll second.
Mr. Malone. Mr. Bell?
Aye.
Mr. Love?
Aye.
Ms. Heffley?
Aye.
Ms. Higgins? And who'd I leave off? Mr. Malone.
Aye.
Does anybody have any questions about the budget as it's presented? For right now?
Looks like the insurance going up again.
Mhm.
What did you expect?
Just part of life.
So we have any old business that anybody wants to discuss? Discussion or action on any old business? Okay, then I will adjourn the meeting. 6:30.